yourself. That's right, I see the chat. I see y'all rocking. I see y'all coming. Hit that like button as you enter the building. You know what I'm saying? Hit that like button. Show your love. Show your support. You know what I'm saying? This that dope soul. This that new thing. Nobody don't know about it.
Salute, Knick family. Welcome to the Just Knickin' It Weekly Show. I'm your host, Stephanie, a.k.a. Queen, and as always, we have a lot to talk about. The Knicks have hired their 32nd head coach in NBA history, Mike Brown, recently of the Sacramento Kings. We're going to talk all things Mike Brown. We'll also talk the Knicks free agent signings. We'll double back on Jordan Clarkson, who we talked about Monday some. We'll talk about Yabusele. Did I say that right? We'll talk about him as well. And the Knicks are kicking the tires on Ben Simmons. I don't know how I feel about it, but I'm interested to see how you all feel about it. And then we'll also talk about, if we have time, are the Knicks doubling down on offense? You know, Jordan Clarkson, Yabusele, not really known as, defensive players, bringing in Mike Brown, who's historically a defensive coach, but with his time in Golden State has really evolved offensively. And then now there's talk of them, if they can, getting Borrega, the associate head coach of the New Orleans Pelicans, to join the staff, also known as a good, if not great, offensive mind. Sounds like the Knicks are doubling down on the offensive end. I'm not sure if that's a bad decision. How good can your defense be if you're going to play Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns 30 plus minutes, which I think they have to, right, in order for the team to be successful. So if we have time, we'll talk about that. But let's start with Mike Brown. Wow, where's all my I was about to say, I know I took some notes here. Couldn't find it. Let's just start with an easy one. Your overall thoughts on the hiring of him, and then we'll dive down and get a bit more nuanced as we go on. Jerrell, Geoff, Trey, welcome, Trey. Welcome to the chat. And then we'll mix it up in terms of those first the next time. But just your overall thoughts, Jerrell?
I'm good, man. I'm ready to go. Now that we got somebody in the driver's seat, I'm ready to get the season started. I'm excited more about the season than the hiring, because I'm not going to lie and say that, I was super excited about Mike Brown being the coach when all of this started. But now that we got him, man, I know he's an accomplished coach, defensive minded, just like Tibbs, just like you said. And maybe they are doubling down on offense because he's like Tibbs, and maybe they should have did that. That's the difference between him and Tibbs. Like, if they would have got offensive coaches for Tibbs, he might not have listened to him. Mike Brown would actually listen to him. And he, was in the driver's seat for the offense for Golden State, like you said, too. And he had the number one offense in Sacramento. But like you said, he is a historically defensive coach. So I like the hire. He was the most accomplished coach out of everybody that we was going to interview. So yeah, I like it. Like, I'm not doing cartwheels, but I'm ready for the season to get started.
Yeah, facts. Geoff, just briefly overall, before we dig down, just your overall thoughts on Mike Brown?
Well, I'm a lot happier with the choice than I was a week ago, because if you asked me last week, I was definitely not in the Mike Brown camp. But the more that I learn about him, the more that I study him, the more that I read about him, the more that I look at him as just as a candidate, I think that the Knicks made a good hire. I think he's not a rock star superstar coach, but I don't think there were any of those available on the market for us to hire. I think that you can argue that he's at least Thibodeau's peer, if not his superior, in terms of his coaching resume. And when you're hiring a new coach, I think that's what you want, is somebody who looks better than the old one, right? And I think that there was not a chance that we were going to be hiring someone without any experience. So that took a lot of, I think, the favorite candidates off the market, the Sam Cassells and the Johnny Bryants and those sorts of folks. The front office was not going to going to go in that direction. So if you're going for an experienced coach, he's as good as any who are on the market.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that. Trey, your thoughts briefly before we get into the nuance of it?
Yeah, forgive me if I'm on a little bit of a delay, but as far as Mike
Okay.
Brown's concerned, I love. Let me just say, I'm cool with the hire. I'm cool with it. I'm just kind of researching some of his past stops, and we kind of talked about it briefly before we got on. He's more accomplished than Tibbs is, and respect to Tibbs and everything that he's done with the Knicks. But Mike Brown has been to the finals before. He's also been on the Warriors coaching staff, and I remember that little stretch where Steve Kerr had to kind of step aside for a few weeks, and he kind of stepped in and helped them win some games along the way. And then what he did in Sacramento, after a 17-year drought with the Kings, to put them back in the spotlight as a 3 seed, and the improvement in the win percentage for the Kings was pretty good also. 2-time coach of the year. I will say he falls into the category of a retread coach, but I like this situation for Mike Brown, because if anybody can come in and step into a situation where it's finals or bust and be able to deal with the New York media, I think it's Mike Brown. And I think he's going to bring that aggressiveness like you see in some of these clips where he's, running practices and things like that. Like, people say he's too aggressive, but I kind of like how he gets on these players and he's, all in on, trying to make these guys great. So I'm cool with the hire.
Yeah, I like the hire as well. I thought the Knicks needed an experienced coach, not someone who's never coached before. I just didn't think this was a situation for an inexperienced coach. Not that they couldn't have come in and did a good job. I just didn't think this was the time to take that chance. I think he brings the best of Thibodeau in the sense of commanding the respect of the players, holding players accountable, detailed oriented, but different than Tibbs in the areas we need him to be in terms of offensive versatility, creativity, and defensive versatility. And we'll talk more about that, as we go along. Like, he's coached a center who wasn't good defensively, right? So this is not his first time trying to figure that out. He's played with a guard who's, pretty good with the ball in his hand. So it's not going to be the first time he's well, it wouldn't be anyway. He's coached other players like that as well, including LeBron. So, I like that about him. He's 50-40 in the playoffs, a near 600 winning percentage. I like that as well. But listen, as we all know, it takes a lot to win a championship. It's not just the coach and their schemes, is also the talent on the team and them showing up, and the interaction between, I should say, the coach and their schemes, and then having the talent and that talent showing up in in the games. And so I don't think we need Mike Brown to be a star. You know what I mean? I think we need him to be competent. It reminds me of the Super Bowl, right? When you think about building a team that can win a Super Bowl, you look at your quarterback. Eli Manning wasn't better than Brady. But when you drafted him, you asked yourself, can you win a Super Bowl with this quarterback? And if you put the right pieces around him, yeah, you can. And so that's how I feel about Mike Brown. You put the right pieces around him. He's a competent coach. The Knicks can win a championship. We don't have a lot of intel, or at least I didn't read a lot of intel in terms of his in-game coaching, lineups, rotations in games. I know he is detail oriented, but listen, we're gonna watch him game in and game out, right? So we'll have a firsthand view of that. But I thought it was the best hire, to your point, Geoff, that the Knicks could make amongst the available coaches. And looking forward to see what he brings. What? And I'm gonna check in. I'm gonna give you guys the question, and then I'll check in with the chat while you guys are mulling it over. What do you like about this? What do you think he's gonna bring to the Knicks that's going to elevate them? And what are your concerns or questions that you have, if any? So you can mull on that. I just want to give the chat a shout out. Sherwin, Steph, let me give you my thoughts on the hiring. 42 wins. Okay. Brown is trash. Wow. Okay. Elijah Ishan, I don't know if I got that right. Greetings from Ghana. One of my favorite places in the world, Ghana. I've been there 3 times, on my way back again sometime this year or early next year. I always enjoy your show. Let's go Knicks. Paris Duggar, Brown coached all the megastars the last 10 years other than KD. Yeah, he has. Let's see. Wow. Somebody's talking about Moses Brown. Okay. Ruben Nunez, can somebody go protest Dolan? This is a bad hire. Can you guys put in the chat specifically why you like the hire and specifically why you don't like the hire, or you think it's a bad hire? 42 wins. Wow. Oh, okay. All right. Kerry Cox, 52 win season. Eddie Kofi, he will hold players accountable. That's what I read. It's a really good article in The Athletic by Fred Katz about him. Okay. All right. Yeah. So what is it, even whether you watched Mike Brown before, followed him, whether you read about him, what is it that you think he's going to bring to the Knicks that's going to elevate the Knicks? And any questions or concerns? Geoff, Trey, and then Jerrell.
What I like about him is the offensive creativity. I mean, he took a team that shot 36.9% from 3, which was 9th best in the league, and had him as a top 8 offense in the history of the sport.
Mm-hmm.
In the history of the sport, that means all the years combined, it was 8th best. And so, to me, that kind of offense, that kind of milking your offense for what it's worth. I mean, he didn't have the best 3-point shooters, but he still managed to have an elite offense. And I think you can argue that he has better 3-point shooters here in New York. And so if he can bring that pace and space where we kind of utilize Karl Anthony Towns as a hub a little bit and run a lot of picks and curls and actions off of him, which was what he did in Sacramento. If we can emulate some of those things here, I think that we can have a very dynamic offensive system. And so I think that's what I'm looking forward to the most is to see how he takes the offensive talent on this team, which is better than it was last year, in my opinion, with our free agent signings, who we'll get to later. But I just to be able to maximize the ability of all those guys and see what that looks like. I think in the first 30 games of last year, we were all excited by a team that shared the ball and was, setting the world on fire with assists, shooting the ball at a high percentage, all of those things. I think he can bring a lot of those things back. And I think those are a lot of the concepts we kind of abandoned for whatever reason at the end of last year, whether that be lineups or X's and O's, whatever the case may be. I think that the destiny of this team lies with its offensive skill, not its defensive skill, just based on its makeup. And I think that Brown can maximize that. I am concerned a little bit about how he handles players. I thought, Keon Ellis kind of got a raw deal at a certain point last year, but part of that was teaching the young man a lesson. I guess he had missed a rotation or something like that. So accountability is good, but I also think it's important that he maintain a good relationship with his team and with his players and be able to let's face it, there's a lot of mouths to feed on this team, and so he's going to have to do a good job with keeping everybody happy, and that's not necessarily easy as someone who's coming into your first season without having relationships with a lot of these guys.
Yeah. Hopefully he can develop them quick. Do you think if there's changes that he wants to make, do you think he slow rolls it because he doesn't have the relationship just yet? Or do you think it's expected from a new coach that they're going to come in and make changes so you don't anticipate any issues with that?
I think whatever your system is, you got to get it on the table day one so that we can have a maximum time to work on it. And you're not going to perfect it in one season, but to get the concepts integrated, to get everybody comfortable and on the same page. Look, we don't have a lot of time to waste. I don't think we need to slow roll or slow play anything. If this is how we're going to do it, we trust this man to get it done. Give him the keys, let him start it up and rev that engine. Let's go.
Okay. All right. Trey, what do you think he'll bring, and any questions or concerns?
I think he's going to bring the opportunity to collaborate with the front office, any kind of analytic groups that the Knicks have on staff, the assistant coaches and the players. I think he's going to be a guy that's going to listen to everyone, take some notes, and just kind of make decisions from that point on, and just be a person that's going to better communicate with those around him versus what Tibbs was. Because rumor had it that, they tried to tell Tibbs, hey, I think you got to go this way. I think you need to do this, do that. And he kind of was like, man, get out of here. I'm going to do my thing, whatever. So I think Mike Brown is going to he's going to be more collaborative with the front office and the coaching staff. I also think just on the floor, I think he's going to roll out 9-man rotations, 10-man rotations. I thought he was really good doing that in Sacramento as of recent. I think he's going to bring a fire to this group. He can be very demonstrative on the sidelines. He can be a character in press conferences, as you may have seen clips throughout his Sacramento, during his Sacramento tenure. I think he's going to bring a lot of intensity. I think he's going to be a very fiery head coach that's going to really demand a lot more out of these players, especially Cat. I think he can get a lot out of Cat. I think he can get him to, defend a little bit better than what he's shown. I think he's going to be able to unlock some of these other players that may not get the touches that they would. It's going to look different. Brunson's still the man, but I think it's going to look different in the sense that I think you're going to see Brunson play a little bit more off ball, not too much, because you still want the ball in his hands, but I think in certain situations you're going to see him play more off ball, and I think it's going to pay off. So that's kind of where I'm at. As far as questions go, I don't think I have any concerns. Like, again, I think he's built for this market to be able to handle the media, to answer the questions. I think he's built for that. If anything, them underachieving, I think, would be my biggest concern because of the situation that he's walking into. It's basically, you got to get this team to the finals. Conference finals is not enough. Second round, not enough. This team has to get to the finals, especially what's been going on around the conference with all the injuries and guys getting popped for gambling and, all kinds of stuff happening in the Eastern Conference. So, you got to take advantage of the opportunity while you got it.
Yeah, let me ask you a question when it comes to collaboration. Where's the line? So, well, I should say this. What do you mean by collaboration? Is it listening taking into account and still making your decision where you may or may not go with what's being said, or is collaboration actually doing what's brought to you? Where do you fall on that?
I think the collaboration is more so giving the suggestions a chance, letting it play out on the floor. See if it works, see if you get the right matchups. And if it doesn't work, then you can kind of go back and just say, hey, y'all, I tried it your way. This didn't work against this opponent or that opponent. Let me try something different. And if it goes right this way, we'll stick to that way. If not, then we'll collaborate again and kind of think of some ways where we can maximize the talent on the roster. So that's what I mean by being collaborative, is actually giving it a chance, letting it manifest itself on the floor. And if it doesn't work in certain situations, then you can always mix it up and change it up.
Yeah, before I get to Jerrell, anybody else want to comment on what does it mean to collaborate with the front office and even the assistant coaches to you?
No, not really. I think what Trey said, it makes sense. I think because that was going to be one of my answers anyway.
Okay.
Like the collaboration with the front office and his versatility with with the offense. His collaboration with the front office, I meant to say. Yeah, but I think, if you're going to ask me what I think that, your original question.
Yes.
What he brings, those are the two things that he brings that Tibbs didn't. So those, like the offense and his collaboration, are going to be the two main things. But another main thing that he's going to do is his relationship with the players. I want to see how that locker room is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying that Mike Brown always had a good relationship with his players anyway, because it seemed like he lost the locker room in his last job at Sacramento for whatever reason. I have no idea what happened, but obviously there was a fracture in our locker room last year. We don't know exactly what it is, but like we tried to put our finger on it when after the new year happened, like January, all throughout the rest of the season, we all thought something was wrong, but we just didn't know what it was. Come to find out that what it was Tibbs, or how he was treating some of the players, or whatever type of concerns that they had in the locker room. They are the ones who got rid of Tibbs. Not saying that Mike Brown is going to be perfect in all those areas, but we should be developing our young players a little bit more. That was part of the reason he came here. He's been known to do that in the past. So, yeah, his offense, his versatility in that offense, and what Trey said with the collaboration, those are pretty much the two perfect answers, because that's what they brought him in for.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the offensive creativity. I'm really looking. Listen, Towns had a career year, so I'm not gonna undersell that. But I do think in the playoffs and even in the regular season, he could have been used more as a hub. So I'm really looking to see if Mike Brown does that. I'm looking to see if he can develop better chemistry between Brunson and Towns together. And also, I think the line between creating a free-flowing offense, but at the same time understanding that Brunson is a ball-dominant guard, and he's at his best when the ball is in his hands. And so striking that balance between, an offense that's difficult to guard, right? Because you have multiple players who can hit shots for you and create shots, but at the same time, not turning Brunson into a passer, right? You still want him to be able to run it down their throats, so to speak. So it's going to be interesting to see how he deals with that dynamic. I'm also looking defensively to see what he does. From what I read with Sabonis, he had Sabonis being pretty aggressive in the pick and roll. So let's see what he does with Cat. Let's see if maybe he plays zone. He has to hide two players in Brunson and Town. So let's see how he does that. Even though he started out being known as a defensive coach. Personnel matters. Personnel matters. And so the idea that you can just take, a team with 2 weak defenders and now all of a sudden you have a top 5 defense because this is a defensive coach, I'm not quite sure about that. But I think if the Knicks is in the top half, I think they'll be okay. And as far as the collaboration is concerned, I think it depends on where the line is in terms of collaboration. And I'll talk about it first with the front office. Is it we're all going to get together and make the game plan and the front office is going to tell the coach who he should play, he should not play, how many minutes this one should play? I think that's too strong of a collaboration. Like, I do think that the coach has to be free to make those decisions. At the same time, I do think it's appropriate for the front office to say, look, the collective bargaining agreement is such that in the next year or two, it's going to be really difficult for us to sign quality players. Can you find a way, because remember, the Knicks are a championship contending team right now. And it takes time for young players to be consistent. However, is there a way you can find time and garbage time, spot minutes somewhere to just kind of bring them along year by year so that in the next year or two, they're ready to take on a bigger role? I think that's fair. So I think it just depends on where the line is in terms of collaboration. Same thing with the assistant coaches. The sense I get is that he empowers his assistant coaches. He learned that from his time in Golden State. The assistant coaches run practices, he also learned that with Golden State. And I think, definitely listen to your assistant coaches. Is there something that you agree with? Like, wow, I never even thought about that. Let me incorporate that. But listening to them, if it's something you don't agree with, I don't think you should initiate it just because you want to be collaborative. I think it has to be something that resonates with you and like, you know what? I didn't even think about that. I think that's a good idea. I am going to use that. So I think the line is different for each of us when it comes to collaboration. It's going to be interesting to see how it works out with Mike Brown. I don't know if I have any concerns. Like I said, I'm not sure if he's a tactician and in-game adjustments and things of that sort. We'll see as the season, goes on. But I think it was a good hire for the Knicks.
Steph, real quick, one concern that I just thought of, like, it was like conflicting reports about the assistant coaches. Like I heard a report that saying that he's going to be able to bring his own guys, but then I heard that they want to keep like 3 of them.
Like 4 of them. I'm like, well, how many assistant coaches are you going to have?
That's the whole damn staff almost.
Well, you keep Daddy Brunson though, right?
Yeah, but that's one person. But why are we keeping like Mark Bryant and Mo Cheeks and stuff like that? Like, why are we keeping them? That don't make any sense.
Yeah.
If that's true.
Sorry, we got it.
I was just going to say if that's true, because I like read 2 reports, like they was just conflicting. So I have no idea what they're going to do. So I'm definitely concerned about that.
Maybe they're suggested. But he doesn't have to keep them if he doesn't want to. I wonder if salary is a part of it as well, because they still have to pay them as well. And if they let them go, sign the new assistant coaches, I don't know. I don't know if keeping Mike Brunson was a priority because of Jalen. I heard that his role might be smaller than it was on Thibodeau's staff. So yeah, I read both of them as well.
Okay.
Not sure. Yeah. All right. Let's get to the chat a little bit before we move to, I guess we kind of answered it because I was going to ask, what do you want to see from him offensively? What do you want to see from him defensively? I think Some of us answer. I know I answered that already.
Yeah, we pretty much.
All right.
To be honest.
Ruben Nunez, damn, Dolan is an idiot for listening to Worldwide West. We all know this is a Worldwide West hire. I mean, he does have a relationship, from what I understand, with Worldwide West. I don't know if they would hire him just for that. I think he, went through the interview process twice. My understanding is that he was very detailed in those interviews in terms of what he would do. He also met with Dolan. Maybe Worldwide West got him to the door, but he had to seal the deal, and he did. Sherman, let's see how long it will take Brunson to ask to be traded. Okay. Can Mike Brown handle the New York City media? What's your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. He coached the Lakers. If you can coach the Lakers, you can coach the Knicks. Not saying that it's exactly the same, but pressure is pressure. Like he's coached in pressure situations before.
Yeah.
Not only did he coach the Lakers, he had to follow in Phil Jackson's footsteps.
Yep.
And he actually performed just as well in his first and really only season in LA as Jackson did in his final season in LA, for what it's worth.
Yeah. Brown is a defensive coach. How? Again, I think personnel matters, but when he first started, he was more known for his defense than his offense. Am I mistaken?
No. Yeah. He's a defensive coach.
No. Okay. No. He can coach defense. Yeah.
Personnel matters, though. Personnel matters. I'm not sure with this rotation, this team, we have a top 5 defense. I'm not sure about that. Keeping it real, we hit our ceiling with Tibbs. People acting like we're about to be a lottery team. If we're fairly healthy, that won't happen. Nobody thinks we're going to be a lottery team. I think we're going to be fine. I do believe Brown experience gets us to the 4th or 5th seed.
What?
Come on.
Yeah, trick.
Yeah. Curtis D, I'm giving everybody a voice, whether I agree with it or not.
Yeah.
Voice.
Too silly for Trey to be laughing like that. That's all.
Curtis D. Young, like hire for the elevation he will bring to the offensive schemes. Really, really looking forward to that as well. Can Brown get Cat, Brunson, Guerschon, Yabusele, and Clarkson to be average defenders? Listen, this is a question that I have for the panel. I think we're leaning into offense more so than defense. I don't think we can be a team cone, right? But I'm not sure this is a top 5 defense, or maybe not even be a top 10 defense. What's your guys' thoughts on the Knicks and defense?
The numbers tell us it was top 15 defense, right? We were like at 114.3 points per 100 possessions or something like that, which was, I think, 14th in the league, which is not fantastic. I don't think that the defensive talent or lack thereof is significantly different from this year to last year. So I look, if the Knicks are going to win the championship, they're going to do it the Denver Nugget way. And what was the Nuggets defensive rating when they won the championship? Like 114.3, which is exactly where we were last year. So can a change in scheme, a little variability, maybe mixing in some zone, doing some things that accentuate the strengths that our players do have on the team, keep us in that range? I think so. Did his teams in Sacramento struggle on that end of the floor? Absolutely. They were, I think, 24th in defensive rating at both of his full seasons there. But I think that they didn't have a Mikal Bridges. They didn't have a Deuce McBride. They didn't have an OG Anunoby. So we have some good defenders.
Right.
And, it's hard to hide everybody that's bad. I understand that. But I think it can be done to the point where we can be an average defensive team because we were an average defensive team last year.
Yeah, we worked our way into an average defensive. There was a stretch there where we looked we didn't look quite right, out just to say it lightly. So they were ranked 24th defensively in the first year and 14th in defense in the second year in terms of defensive defensive rating. And I agree. I think the personnel is better. I don't think Clarkson is a good defender. I don't think Yabusele is a good defender. So it also depends on how many minutes they get and who they're in the game for. Like lineups are going to matter, right? As well. Okay. Let's see. JJ, hard to be a great defensive team when your best two players are bad descenders. Yeah.
Yep.
What do you think, Queen? You think?
1 second. We don't
think
have
they stagger. Oh, right.
Just 1 second. Let me just read this last one. We don't have the horses to be a top 10 defense. Okay. What are you going to say, Trey?
No, I was going to ask, what do you think? Do you think they find a way to kind of stagger them both a little more throughout the season, or you just think that it's just you probably got a hard rock in a place trying to hide them doing it that way?
I mean, you would think they're both going to play 35 minutes.
Yeah,
like you might be able to stagger them some, but it's going to be hard to stagger them significantly. What's your thoughts, Jerrell and Geoff?
Yeah, if your two best players are bad defenders, I don't see like your team as a whole can't be a good defensive team. Like you can stagger them, but like you said, like if they're playing a combined 70 minutes, 35 apiece, you can't stagger them but so much. Yeah. It's only 48 minutes in the game, so.
Mm-hmm. And with Jordan Clarkson being on the floor for probably those other minutes, you're going to have two bad defenders on the court all the time, no matter what. You kind of resigned yourself to that when you decided to add Clarkson and Yabusele to your rotation. I mean, I'm just saying, this is a team that's going to have to lean into its offense and be extraordinarily elite on that end of the court, and hope to be average defensively like they were last year. I mean, I know that, you brought in a couple of worse defenders, but, you hope that you can, you hope that Brown can schematically figure some things out and help minimize, the damage on that end of the floor. I think that we're going to play with a little bit more pace. I think we're going to, I think we're going to be able to take advantage of some of the skill sets that this roster has that we've really kind of ignored in the last, 14, 16 months, I think. Mm-hmm. And so we'll see how that goes. I do think it's interesting that, and I think it was DJ Zulo who posted this on Twitter. He was talking about how when De'Aaron Fox played for Brown, his number of dribbles per possession decreased in each season that he was there, which meant he's getting the ball out of his hands quicker. It was becoming, and it was facilitating the offense better. And if Brown can have that effect on Brunson, and it wasn't, maybe 1 or 2 less dribbles, maybe not necessarily anything massively dramatic, but just getting the ball to move a little bit faster. I think that's a slight tweak that can pay big dividends. And what you saw was Domantas Sabonis went from an all-star to an all-NBA player under Mike Brown. De'Aaron Fox had his 2 best seasons under Mike Brown. Excellent season. Malik Monk had the best season of his career under Mike Brown. So this is a guy who's able to maximize offensive players extremely well. And we have more offensive talent on this team than that Sacramento team did in either of its iterations. So if he can do the same things for us that he did for them, I think you're looking at a team that's going to be very difficult to stop.
Yeah, I agree with that. I you know, I don't want to be remiss. I mean, there are players who had their best years under Thibodeau too, and who maxed out under Thibodeau too. So I don't want it to seem like, Mike Brown is going to do something Thibodeau never did when it came to maximizing players. But I do agree with you. Whenever you bring in a new coach, there is an opportunity for another player or players to be placed in different roles that are, more conducive to them. I hope that happens with Mikal Bridges, right? Does he become a secondary ball handler? Does he run with the bench and then get an opportunity to show more of, more of his, more of his skills? We shall see. It's going to be very interesting. Looking forward to that. Let me just see if there's any antisocial Olu. Hopefully I got that right. Start Deuce, preserve Mitch with less minutes. Okay. Got you. With that, there was something else. Keith Turner, appreciate you. Mike Brown's job isn't to win a championship, not in one season. Blame Leon Rose because this was the coach he chose to die with. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the questions I had. Do you think it's fair that he's expected to get the Knicks to the finals in his first year here?
Yes, I think it's fair.
Yeah.
This is the most talented roster he's ever coached. And it's not particularly close. Like, everybody wants to say, well, he had LeBron for 5 years or 4 years, whatever it was. LeBron wasn't in his prime yet, and LeBron had no help around him. I think the one all-star player that he played with in his time there was Mo Williams, and that was a one-shot deal. I mean, he had Shaq when Shaq was over the hill, 12.7 rebound a game guy. You had Anderson Varejao and Ilgauskas. I mean, those rosters, other than LeBron, who was awesome and coming into his own, those rosters were terrible. They had an MVP candidate, and he won it once. We have an MVP candidate. Guess what? He's been top 5. He's in, and you know what? We have another All-NBA player besides that, and we have a collection of role players who are also very good around that as well. I don't really understand that. I mean, that we focus so much on those years, but even in those years, he won 66 ball games one year and lost to a 59-win Orlando team in the playoffs. And again, James was his only good player on that team. The Knicks roster, we don't have anybody of James caliber at that point. I'll agree with you there, but the roster 2 through 8 is vastly superior to anything that we saw in his time in Cleveland. And so, and he took a roster in Sacramento that wasn't overly talented, and he took them to their only 2 winning seasons in the last 19 years. Let me repeat that. Their only 2 winning seasons in the last 19 years were under Coach Brown. So this is the most talented team he's ever coached, and I don't think it's unreasonable for a team that was 6 wins away from the championship last year in a conference where some of those teams are obviously weaker, including Indiana, who's now without a point guard and a center. Boston is without Tatum. Look, there's an opportunity there. Does that mean he's definitely going to get there? No, but I don't think it's an unreasonable expectation if you believe in this roster. And if you don't, then I think that there's a problem with the organization. They have to believe in the talent that they brought in.
Yeah. Trey, Jerrell.
Go ahead, Jerrell.
Okay. The question is it fair? That's pretty tough before training camp. I know a lot of people think like what happened last year is just automatically supposed to just happen the next year, and we're just supposed to automatically get to the Eastern Conference Finals again. I don't really think that way.
Neither does Ajay. I know he's hating that he missing this segment.
Salute to Ajay.
Salute to Ajay couldn't make it tonight.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that way. That's a hard question. Fair, like the word "fair" to me is what's catching me.
What do you expect? I mean, you can reframe the question, like you can answer it a different way.
I guess to me, it would be fair once I see how the season plays out and we get to the playoffs. You know what I'm saying? Like if we are starting to lose series, or if we lose a series that we're supposed to win and win handedly because of how we played during the season. I don't know how we're going to play during the season yet. I don't know exactly what our offense is going to look like. I don't know how our defense is. Like, it's too many question marks for me to be like, yeah, it's fair. He has to get to the finals, or he should be fired, or it should be completely blown up. Because when you say, like, if he gets to the finals or bust, what is bust? What does bust look like? Like, say if he doesn't get to the finals, then what? Like, he gets fired after his first year? There's no type of pressure on the players. Well, the players didn't play well because we didn't get to the finals because of that. It has nothing to do with his coaching. So when it comes to the word fair, that's what's hanging me up. So no, I don't think it's fair. But yeah, you can definitely have especially with us fans. Yeah, we're going to expect him to get to the finals, if that makes sense. But is it really fair? No.
Yeah, you make a good point. Player performance is a part of this too. Even with Thibodeau, it was a lot of focus on Thibodeau, not a lot of focus on Brunson, not a lot of focus on the other players as well. So yeah, if the Knicks don't make it to the finals, is this going to be pinned just on Mike Brown, or are we also going to look at the player performance? And again, there's some interaction with that, right?
Right.
If the defensive schemes and the offensive schemes aren't great, it does make it difficult for the players to perform. But at the same time, sometimes player performance outranks scheme. I mean, you look at Indiana. They made it to within one game of winning a championship. Rick Carlisle is seen as a maestro, and he was. I thought he was brilliant in this playoff run.
For
But
sure.
Tyrese Halliburton hit 4 game-winning shots in that series. Right? That makes a difference. That makes a difference as well, like player performance. So if you're going to win a championship, it could be anything on any given night. It could be a coach, with a scheme, or bringing a player in off the end of the bench, not the end of the bench, but playing a player extended minutes because this player is not getting done, and that makes the difference. It could be the coach being like a deer in headlights, but Brunson dropped 50. So it doesn't matter, right? You're gonna win a championship throughout the course of a season, the playoffs. It's gonna be different things that's gonna get you there, different ways to win the game. It's not all the coach, all the players. It's gonna be an interaction, of the two. I don't think it's fair that he has to. This is just the second year this team has been together. Now they're going to have a new coach. They're going to have new offensive schemes, new defensive schemes. You think about how long it took Milwaukee to win, how long it took Boston to win, how long it took these other teams to win. But the Knicks have to do it within 2 years. I don't know how fair it is, but that's the expectation, and I think he's built for it. Trey?
If the Knicks don't get to the finals, it better be because Brunson's out for the year, or Cat's out for the year, or we lose a couple of guys due to injury at some point in the regular season. The expectations are fair. And I talked about it, what's going on with the rest of the conference. I think for me, if you ask me about the other teams, you got to take Cleveland seriously. After coming off a 64-win season, you got to take them seriously. And I think you got to take the Pistons seriously, even though Malik Beasley's got some, issues going on with him. But I don't know that that's going to affect the Pistons. Right. That's what I was getting ready to say. It's not really going to affect the Pistons as much as the injuries to the other teams in the East would affect their situations. But for me, it's those three teams. It's the Knicks, Cleveland, and Detroit. I think are going to be your top three in the East. And I saw somebody in the chat put Orlando and Atlanta as, maybe some sneaky good, Eastern Conference teams. People are overhyping this Desmond Bane acquisition to the Magic. I'm just not buying that he's going to make them significantly that much better. I think if anything, those guys getting healthy again are going to make them, a better team. But I think it's fair to put these expectations on the Knicks. And Jerrell, to answer your question about, what happens if they fall short. No, they're not going to fire Mike Brown. They're just going to run it back. Cleveland, they did the same thing last, offseason. They got rid of JB after taking them a step further. They thought, Kenny Atkinson can make that team look different, which he did. And they fell short. They ended up where they were the year before. So, they're not firing Kenny Atkinson. They're just going to run it back. So I think that's what's going to happen with this Knicks team is they're just going to maybe tweak some things with the roster. But for the most part, I think we're going to be flipping tables and, kicking things, if they don't make it, to the finals. And it's just going to be a whole nother offseason to talk about what could have been and looking forward to the next year and seeing what they could do.
Yeah,
there'll be a lot more chance to improve the team significantly next year, just based on the contracts we have available. We'll have our 2026 draft pick available in trade. We'll also have unlocked the 2033 draft choice. So you have more resources to make a significant roster upgrade as compared with this offseason. So, look, I'm standing by my thing. Unless, context matters, but if this team is healthy, they should be Eastern Conference Finals at a minimum and NBA Finals as an expectation, in my opinion. And I don't think that's unreasonable. And the context will determine that. But, and then I think then next offseason is when you make your big swing to get, if you need to alter the roster in a significant way, that's when you have the capital to do so, especially compared to what you have at the moment.
Okay. Juan B, appreciate you. Been a minute. Again, the notion that the Knicks are just getting to the finals is crazy. Yeah, listen. Remember last season, before the season started, on paper the Knicks was were going to the finals, and then the season hit, and it was a reality check. So let's see. For me personally, I want to see how it plays out. I think Atlanta is going to be much better. I do think the Knicks are going to have to work out their chemistry. I think you may see a little ups and downs in the beginning when it comes to the Knicks. Hopefully, they'll be rounding into shape, by the end of the season. And I'm hopeful. I do think this is a team that can make it to the Eastern Conference Finals and to the finals. They can. I've just seen enough to know that there are no guarantees. David Smith, I'm supposed to be excited about a coach that has been fired 4 times and who was Knicks' 5th or 6th choice as a coach. I mean, as Trey said, he is an accomplished coach, but there is something to be said that, he's gotten fired early into the season a few times. And I'm sure at each stop, it was something different. Was it him losing the players? Was it just something unique to those situations? I don't know if we will ever find out, but he's here now. And listen, coaches evolve over time, right? This is a new situation. Let's see how it goes with the Knicks. Dish Dash, Coach Brown was the safe pickup. I'm not sure he's the long-term solution. Listen, this is it, in my opinion, for Leon Rose. I think this is the last coach he's going to be able to hire. I do think Dolan, in my opinion, is just he just needs to relax. I think when he gets close, he just gets a little nervous. Like, relax, So, but I can see Brown, the Knicks not winning the championship in the next year or two, and I could see Leon Rose and the whole crew gone, and him starting over. So let's see. Size 9, Mark Brown has a total of 5 years combined in his last 2 jobs. Okay. All right. Okay. Someone else said Brunson is going to trade it. The Knicks don't trade Cat. They don't get along. You can see it.
I'm on vacation together right now. I think Cat and Brunson are in Paris on vacation with each other right now.
Yeah.
I think their relationship is fine.
Yeah.
No, they clearly hate each other. You always go on European vacation with those you can't stand.
Right. Mike Brown is mid. Let's be honest. Listen, different situations create different opportunities, right? How many coaches were mid in one situation and then won a championship in another situation? Carlisle didn't do great in Detroit. Right? He won a championship in Dallas. He was within one game of winning a championship with Indiana. And I'm sure we can find other coaches as well. Didn't do great in one situation, went to another situation and won a chip. There's so many variables to winning a chip. It's not just the coach. There are other factors at play. Larry Brown.
Yeah.
Right? Then he comes to the Knicks and it was a shit show. Like there's many factors to winning a championship. It's not just the coach, right? Andrew K, appreciate you rocking with us. Hope Brown can do it. He has a good team. He does. Trap music again. Brown is more than capable. Yes, I believe so as well. It's me. We will see backdoor cuts, body and ball movement, and Brunson should be harder to defend scheme. To me, this is the number one thing I'm looking for. He's an experienced coach. There's going to be a baseline of competence. He's going to have the respect of the players. I was concerned about that with the hire. That's out the window. That's good. This offensive creativity, this is what I'm willing to. This is what I want to see. The Knicks being difficult to guard. It was beautiful the first 30 games of last season, or however long it was, how difficult they were to guard. I want to see more of that. All right.
Steph, I think I'm gonna slide out now.
Okay, yeah, for sure.
Because I know once you get into another question, I'm gonna be on here till like 11:30. You know what I'm saying? Because I can't stop myself.
Safe travel.
Happy 4th of July to you and your family, Jerrell. Have a good one, man. Enjoy North Carolina.
Thank you. Everybody have a good 3-day weekend, unless you're working. You know what I mean? I'm not. Thank the Lord. But yeah, everybody.
I'm not.
You did, Trevor. So everybody have a good weekend.
Yeah.
I'll see you next week, man. We got a new coach.
Yep.
Let's get it.
All right, Jerrell.
Peace.
Salute, man. Be safe.
Okay. Is there anything else on Mike Brown, offensively, defensively, lineups, anything else on him before we move on to the free agent signings?
I just want to reiterate that he resurrected the Kings, people. He resurrected the Sacramento Kings. They've been, probably next to the Knicks the past 20 years. The Kings have been right there with them. They missed the playoffs, 17 years in a row. And he comes in and they get the number 3 seed in the Western Conference. Come on. Mike Brown's a good coach. Yes, he's been fired multiple times, but That's what happens. You get hired to get fired. That's what happens in this league. So, I mean, hell, Mike Malone got fired after winning the championship 2 seasons after the fact. So, you know, I'm not worried about that. Mike Brown, he's going to be all right with me.
Okay. All right. Geoff, anything else?
No, I said all I wanted to say.
All right. Let's talk about the free agent signing. Shout out to the chat, by the way. Those on YouTube, those on Twitter, on X, excuse me. Appreciate you rocking with us. If you have an opportunity, please hit that like button. It helps the algorithm, helps other people get access to the show. Know that we're here. We signed Jordan Clarkson. We signed Guerschon Yabusele. Hopefully, I said that right. Seems to me like the Knicks are leaning into the offense. I'm not saying we're not going to play any defense, that they don't care about the defense. First of all, do you agree with that that's what they're doing? If you do agree with it, do you agree that is the direction that they should be going in, or do you think they should go in another direction in terms of what they're maximizing? Geoff and then Trey.
Well, I think if you got both of your stars are limited on the defensive end and excellent on the offensive end, so I think you have to lean into that. I think the Denver gave us a template that it's possible, and you see if it works. Look, there's no magic formula for how to win a championship, right? Different rosters with different types of constructions have won it throughout the years. You know, you see copycat teams all the time. Some are successful, some are not. You know, I think for us, let's lean into the strengths of our players and see how far that can take us. I honestly don't think that we have we have a team that can be a top 10 defense. I don't think we have the personnel for that. Just my personal opinion. I think that you know, you're signing vet men guys basically, so they're going to have flaws to their game one way or the other. They're going to be the typical New York Knicks player, right? We don't ever have got two-way guys. We either have guys who are great on offense or they're great on defense, and never the twain shall meet. And so when you're talking about small salary guys, that's especially true, right? So you can get a guy who's a lockdown wing defender, for example, but they probably shoot about 25% from three, and they don't have any offensive game to speak of, because that's what you get for that salary slot, right? And so we spent, you know, combined, I think like $9 million on two players. Jordan Clarkson, I'm not the biggest fan of. I made that clear on the last episode, but the guy's a bucket. He can score. He's an above the break 3-point shooter. That's not something that we had a ton of last year, other than Towns, who's reluctant at times to do that. And he can break down teams off the dribble, which is something that only Jalen Brunson had on our team last year. So he brings a different element to the game that we didn't have last year. And so, you know, you see if it works. And look, this was a guy who's making $14 million for the Jazz, gets bought out, and you're getting him for $3 million. To me, that's getting the most bang for your buck, right? You're getting a $14 million player at a you know, a third the price, a fifth the price almost. And so, you know, from that standpoint, I think you did well. Look, if you're leaning into the 5-out concept, which I think the Knicks should, Yabusele is a great asset to have. He's a 38, 39% 3-point shooter. He's not afraid to put him up. And that way, whether Towns is in the game or Yabusele, you could probably play them together if you wanted to, although I think the defense would be problematic. But my thought, it was more that you always have that stretch big on the court at all times. You always have that threat in the lineup. And I think that's really good to have. Plus, Yabusele's fantastic in transition. I think he shot like 71% at the rim or something like that last year. Very good player in the open court. Very, very dangerous for running and gunning. And I think if, shout out to Jordan Smith, if we can steal a page out of the Pacers book and kind of get up and down with that second unit and get some easy buckets, I think that would be ideal. And so, I think that he allows you to do, I think both of those players allow you to do that in a way that we weren't before. Let's be honest, our bench scoring was awful last year, and these two guys help alleviate that, if nothing else. And so you looked at a weakness, you had limited resources to correct that weakness, and I thought, all things considered, bang for your buck, they did pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. Trey, your thoughts on the Knicks leaning into offense? Do you agree if that's what they're doing, number one? And two, do you agree that that's the direction they should be going, or would you have wanted to see more defensive signings in free agency?
I'm not sure yet. I think I have to see what the starting lineup is going to be. I don't know if Mitch is still going to be the starting center for us as of now. I think if he is, then I don't think this is we're just going to run and gun, our whole starting five is just going to be nothing but offensive players. That's kind of the wild card for me, but what they should be doing, they should be having a mixture of offensive and defensive talent. I still think they do have that, even though the new additions don't necessarily bring that. Jordan Clarkson is not a defensive player by any stretch. I haven't watched a lot of Yabusele. I think that's how you say his name. I haven't watched a lot of him, and I know he's got a lot of.
I was saying it wrong.
Yabusele.
Yabusele.
Is that how you pronounce it?
Yabusele.
Okay. All right. I'll if I mess his name up, I'm just gonna call him Y. But
get it together.
But I haven't seen a lot of him. I know he's gotten a lot of minutes because of the injuries on the Sixers last season. Some of the highlights that I've seen, he's got high energy. You could hit him in a fast break, for dunks, aggressive, things like that. And so I don't know that it translates to him being a good to great defensive player or not. But I think the Knicks need to go, more balanced, offense, defense. But I think right now it just depends on who's going to be in the starting lineup. Now, is Cat going to play the 5? Because if he plays the 5 and we go back kind of to like the same starting lineup where Hart is getting the starters minutes, then you're kind of looking at not a very good defensive starting 5 like we saw in the playoffs.
It doesn't have to be Hart, though, right? It could be Deuce McBride. It could be I'm not sure who else. I don't know who else it could be. It doesn't have to be Hart, though. The Knicks still have one vet minimum guy they can sign. I also saw somewhere that for what they signed Yabusele for, it looks like he's being signed for the biannual mid-level exception. So the Knicks still have the non-taxpayers, the taxpayers mid-level exception. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. But apparently they can at least sign one other vet minimum player. At this point, though, the bench rotation is at 9. And I think the 10th person could be one of the young guys. I'm not sure if there's another player to sign, but who knows what the Knicks are going to do. Yabusele, does he start? Does he start at power forward? Does he come off the bench? does this mean that Mitchell Robinson is sure to come back? Do you think this is insurance in case they can't come to an extension agreement? Thoughts on Yabusele's role on the Knicks, Trey?
I think he comes off the bench, and I think, and you make up a good point about him being insurance in case they can't come up with something, for Mitch. And as far as a deal goes, I actually thought you was going to say in case Mitch gets hurt again, because I can agree with a strong case. Yeah, right. I can make a case that he's insurance in case he get hurt, not because they struggle in the negotiation for money and all that. But just on face value, I kind of see him as a guy that can come off the bench and can give you some great energy.
That's not what I was looking for.
Coming off of there. I mean, we haven't, had that kind of energy, come off the bench like that in some time now. So I would much rather see him do that than be a starter. Because you put him at power forward, you put Cat at the 5. Is that how you was kind of seeing that?
Just asking the question. I'm just asking the question, but
yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, making up stuff in my head.
Yeah, and him at the 4. Yeah. The other question I have for you before we move on to Geoff is he's 6'8", and he's played, backup 5, and even started at the 5, right? With Embiid out. I don't know anything about his wingspan or anything like that. Are you comfortable with him? Just your thoughts on him being a backup center, small ball backup center.
Small ball, yeah. That kind of, I feel like that kind of fits him. Like you, I don't know his wingspan. But I do think that when he comes off the bench, he can play some 5. He can 7-foot wingspan. Hey, he's on the money, man. He's coming in on time.
Right.
He's our memorable guy. Sherwin always got it.
Sherwin or 6'8" in shoes. Let us in sneakers. Let us know.
Yep. Always coming with that information. But
yeah.
But I kind of see him like when he's in that second unit. I could see him playing some center. I could see him, I could see them kind of mix it up a little bit. If they had Mitch play the 5 and him play the 4, in spurts, not like, for a long period of time. But I could see that being the case, and you could have a strong, a much stronger defensive front court right there with those two guys, playing the 4 and 5.
Yeah. Geoff?
Yeah, I see him as a reserve. It's those backup 4 and 5. I think that's kind of the role that the Knicks brought him into play. I don't really see him as a starter. He started in Philly more out of necessity than anything else. He does bring a different look to the lineup. So if you just wanted to be versatile and you wanted to, start the game with him, you could. I mean, I've always said it doesn't matter who starts; it matters who finishes, who act. You know what I mean? Because we've had guys who play 12 minutes, but they started for us, right? So it matters a lot more as far as, how many minutes they get. But I kind of think that he's like an 18 to 22 minutes per game guy off the bench at the 4 or the 5 spot. And, unless we're in foul trouble or something like that. But I actually think he's a good player to pair with Robinson in certain positions because he's a stretch big, and that way we don't get clogged up in the second unit. And I think that will help Clarkson, and you can play Bridges and Hart with that group, or OG and Hart with that group. There's a lot of lineup versatility that he brings in. He's not a superstar guy. I mean, he's you're talking about a guy who's making, the biannual exception for a reason, right? Those aren't, all-star players. They're role players. But I think that he does have a lot of versatility in the way that we're set up as a team. He has a chance to carve out a niche with good minutes. And I think that Mike Brown will like his skill set.
Yeah. I'm wondering, Geoff, in the new CBA, if we can if we can gauge guys' talent based on the money they command. Because I just think the new CBA is just depressing the salaries all around. And sometimes you can good players that in the another CBA may have gotten much more money. In this CBA, they're getting vet minimums, right? So I just think with this new CBA, a lot of players are being kind of left out in the cold, having to accept having to accept vet minimums. That's just the new reality of this of this CBA. Um, Before I get to Clarkson, just going back to if you think the Knicks are leaning into offense or defense, I mean, it remains to be seen if um, Mike Brown sees Karl Anthony Towns as a center or as a forward. So I guess I would ask, what do you guess it is he sees him at? What do you think is best for the Knicks? And I think we talked about this a little bit on Monday. If Mitchell Robinson is the starting center and he's playing 30 or more minutes per game, I could see the Knicks extending him. If they see Towns as a center and Mitch as a backup, you gotta in this CBA ask yourself, how much money are you willing to spend on a backup center when you also brought in Yabusele? Are you signing Mitch to a $20 million extension, which is comparable to, I believe it was Gafford? And I don't know. For me, I think it matters if you see him as a starting center or as a backup in terms of the extension. Geoff, we'll start with you.
Well,
That's like 5 questions.
they're all good ones, though. So I think that Mitch will probably start, if I had to guess.
Mm-hmm.
That's not my preference. I prefer Towns at the 5 and would probably start Deuce, but that's I'm probably in the minority there. I kind of agree with you. If that lineup works, and then it kind of makes sense that you could extend Robinson, but I don't see any way that they really do that. I don't think they want to necessarily be in the business of paying him $18 to $20 million a year. That's a significant pay raise, and it's a lot of money to have tied up at the 5 spot. If you believe that Towns is a 5, if you believe that he's a 4 and you want to play him at the 4 full time, then investing that much in a center isn't as problematic.
Right.
I know that the Knicks like flexibility, and if they are going to improve the roster this year, he's one of the few fungible salaries that they can use. So I certainly won't be surprised if he's moved on, especially given his injury history. But again, my preference is to play Towns at the 5. I think he gives us more advantages at that spot, and so that's what I would lean into if I was Mike Brown. But I kind of have a feeling that Brown is going to want the rim protection and the defense, and so I think that he'll have Mitch and Towns in the starting lineup with Hart off the bench. That would be my guess.
Yeah, we haven't even talked about Huck Porty, and forget what I think about young players. The front office wanting to prioritize those guys. So I would think that out of everyone on that on the roster, Huck Porty and Kolek are probably due to get some minutes. So now you got Mitch, Huck Porty, Yabusele, Towns in that 4-5. Usually between a 4 and a 5, if you can rotate 3 players, they can get some good minutes, right? If you're rotating 4, makes it tough. And we already know Towns is going to get his fair share of minutes. So I do think the minutes that are available, it's really going to impact whether the Knicks extend Mitchell Robinson. How do they feel about Huck Porty is going to impact that. How do they
And
feel?
how does he look coming off an injury, right?
How does he look coming off an injury? Is this the time to sell high, right? Given how he looked in the playoffs. They got to extend him. They don't have to, but him and Mikal Bridges are up for extensions. And if I'm not mistaken, signing both of them, maybe even one of them, puts them over the second apron next year. Is that correct, Geoff?
Yes, either one of them.
Either one of them puts them over the second apron next year. So, yeah, tough choices. Trey, your thoughts on that?
Yeah. And then I got to roll after this, but
Sure.
I wanted to discuss this too. So here's the thing, as far as the money goes with Mitch, and whether you want to invest that kind of money into that spot. I think Mike Brown I think he's going to see Cat as a 5. And not to compare these two players, but Sabonis and Sacramento, they're similar-ish type players, except Sabonis is not the scorer that Cat is. Right. But I think because of that experience in coaching him up, I think Mike Brown is going to look at Cat and say, okay, this is the guy that I want playing center for me. And then now you start to talk about, do you want to start Deuce at the 2? Do you want to bring back Josh Hart at the 2? Like, there's some flexibility there to go along with that. Which means Mitch is going to be your backup, and to invest that kind of money in a backup center doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. So I think if any move gets made or any negotiations get halted because of that, obviously I think they're going to check out what happens the first couple of months of the season to see how, these guys play, how they fit in, what's the best rotations, what's the best starting 5 at certain moments throughout the regular season. And then I think by the time the trade deadline, comes, I think you're going to hear a lot of conversations about Mitch being on the trade block, especially if he doesn't assert himself somehow in that starting role. I think you're going to see some trade talks of, him being involved in trade scenarios if he can't get in a starting lineup.
Yeah, I agree with you. I do think, though, we still need, just say they decide to not sign Mitch to an extension and they decide to trade him. I still think we need an experienced center on the bench. Maybe I'm crazy. I know they want to play Huck Porty. They have Yabusele, and maybe that's enough. Yabusele, Towns, and I'm missing somebody.
Mitch.
Huck Porty. If they decide to move away from Mitch, maybe they see that as enough. But I see Towns as a 5-2, but I love the defensive versatility to be able to pair him with a defensive center at times. And Yabusele is not that. So if it's not Mitch, is there any other center that can come in? Probably not at this point on a vet minimum that could play next to Towns for a few minutes a game. Probably not. Probably will be Huck Porty. I think that's the next thing that we're going to hear is about these extensions for Mikal Bridges and Mitchell Robinson. Anything else, Trey, before you get out of here?
No, that's all I had this evening. And as always, it's a blessing and an honor to be on this platform with you guys. I've missed some shows, in the last couple of weeks. Things have just been a little busy, but was able to make myself available for this one amidst a new head coach. So I definitely wanted to get in and, discuss with you guys with what's been going on. So appreciate everybody. Salute to the chat. Salute to you, Geoff, Steph, and we'll be in touch for sure.
Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, appreciate
Thanks for
you.
upping the level of the show.
Anytime.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Be safe this weekend.
Yes,
Yes.
you too. Yeah. Yeah, appreciate Trey for hopping on. He has his own podcast. For those that don't know, I should have asked him to talk about it.
Barbershop Sports.
Yeah, Barbershop Sports, and he talks basketball. He talks football. Does he talk
Football.
baseball too?
I haven't seen it. I'm not saying he doesn't, but I know he's a huge football guy, and I know he's a huge basketball guy. I've not heard any shows on baseball, but I think he does. I think he pretty much does it all, if you want to know the truth.
All right. Shout out to Geraldine McIver. Been a minute, Geraldine. Mike Brown as our next coach. Wow. I'm not impressed. There's no LeBron James on this team. I don't think he needs to be elite, He just needs to be solid. And the players have to perform as well. Like that's a part of it as well. All right. I wanted to ask a question. Jordan Clarkson, what do you think his role is? Who does he back up? And how many minutes do you think he commands off the bench?
I think he's going to be our sixth man. I think he's going to be our offense off the bench. The guard from the guard spot. I think you'll see, when Brunson goes out, I think you'll see him go in, but I don't think it'll be limited to that. I think you'll get probably between 20 and 25 minutes a game, which means that we'll see that pairing side by side some. I don't think it'll be a bunch, but I think, what you figure Brunson plays 34, 35 minutes a game during the regular season. So that's 14 minutes there. So 5 or 6 minutes together sharing the court and and go from there. But yeah, so I think it's about 20. And if he's hot, then maybe you close with him. If he's really, on one of his, benders, which he's going to have some this year. That's kind of who he is. So, I think it's incumbent upon Brown to kind of see how he's doing. And if it just looks like he doesn't have it, then, don't lean into him too much. He's so streaky, but that's tough to do because, he could be one for his first 5 and then hit his next 7, right? You don't now know how that's going to go, but I think he's going to get between 20 and 25 minutes a game, and I think he's going to be a key rotation piece for us. I honestly, I'll be surprised if he isn't.
How does that impact McBride's minutes?
I think McBride is probably about a 20 to 25 minute game per guy too, actually. I think it kind of is like when one is playing well and the other's not, one might get more minutes than the other less. You know what I mean? I think I think you're right. I think they are going to kind of compete for minutes as far as that's concerned, but they're different roles as far as the players are concerned. Because neither one of them is really a point guard. I expect that they'll probably be tasked with those duties unless they are comfortable playing Kolek. And I don't see Kolek getting a lot of time. Of all of our young guys, Hukporti, I think, has the biggest chance to see legitimate minutes, and that's more because of injury concern to Robinson than it is, you know what I mean? Assuming he's healthy, because he's coming off the meniscus injury, but I expect him to be back at full strength, and at least during the regular season, I expect he'll have stretches where he gets a lot of burn, because I don't think Precious Achiuwa is going to be back. I don't think we can afford him, so that kind of elevates him, by default, and so James Najee though is an interesting prospect also. So I think that's a guy that to keep an eye on. Let's see what he can do in summer league. Let's see. He hasn't ever done anything. He's kind of in the second round pick, but I can't say that he's that much ahead or behind Hukporti. I've not seen him play, but I think that's a name that could make the roster just because of financial reasons. And so you may see him get a shot as well, again, given injury and those sorts of things. So, I think that we'll play 9 guys, and I think most of those bench guys are going to be in a similar minutes range of 20 minutes or so.
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough. I mean, we do this coming up to the season, right? When we talk about how many minutes are available and who's playing behind who. I think it's going to be very difficult to get 25 minutes for Clarkson, McBride, Hart, and Yabusele. So you're gonna, somebody is getting 15 to 18 minutes out of those 4, unless there's trades made to open up space. But even if there's trades made to open up space, you're bringing in, other players that may also command minutes. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Like, do you play Josh Hart $20 million or whatever it is to play 15 minutes a game? So it's going to be interesting to see how the minutes play out.
And is Hart still a starter? I mean, that is a possibility that nobody's really talking about. We all kind of assume that Brown is going to go away from, last year's starting lineup, but that isn't, we don't know that that's true until it happens, right? It could be, it could be. I would be surprised, but if anybody in the starting lineup is going to lose their spot, it would be him, right. Because he's, for various reasons. But I think that I think he's going to get 25 minutes a game, and if I had to. So here's a question, and I don't know the right answer to it. If you had to rank in terms of minutes, Hart, Clarkson, and McBride. What's your hierarchy, and then how many minutes per game do you think each player is getting?
This is hard for me, Geoff, because I would think, wow. And then I don't know if Brown sees Hart as somebody that can play the 4. Right? Or does he see him as somebody that's just 2-3? So now you got Clarkson 2-3, you got Hart 2-3, you got McBride 1-2. That's pretty much of a log jam. So I would say if Hart is on the bench, then McBride is in the line. Like, one of them are in the starting lineup, right? It's either McBride or Hart. So are we putting McBride in the lineup?
Well, not necessarily. If Mitch is in the starting lineup, then they're both coming off the bench.
Oh my God. If Mitch is in the starting lineup, I'm gonna say, in terms of minutes, wow, this is tough. I'm gonna say Hart, Clarkson, McBride. But Hart and Clarkson might be close in minutes.
So you're expecting a massive minutes reduction from Josh Hart then?
Well, he's not going to. Yeah, he's going to play. I see him as a 25-minute a game. I see him at 25 minutes, maybe.
I think that's his proper role. I'm just
right. Yeah. I think
JJ doesn't even want Hart in the building. Don't even say you don't want to start Hart. You don't want to start Hart. You don't want to finish Hart. You don't want to end between Hart. JJ has no heart.
Listen,
and we love you, brother, but he doesn't have no heart.
I'm not sure why people are so down on Josh Hart. He wasn't great in the Indiana series. I thought before that he was fine. And I think when you put him in his role, it's magical. To me, he's one of the premier role players in this league. And when you put him in his role, you really get to see.
Mike Brown remembers that he got his rear end kicked by Josh Hart. I remember that post-game interview. I don't know if you do or not, but when Hart went crazy on them, it's like pretty much like, yeah, Josh Hart just killed us.
Yeah.
So I'm sure he's going to be appreciative of what Hart can do.
Yeah. And then also, to me, if Mitch is starting, there's duplication, in my opinion, between Clarkson and Deuce. Deuce is the better defender, but don't get me by It's not even close. He's a better defender. But that's going to be tough to tease out the minutes.
Well, McBride's a better 3-point shooter than
and
Clarkson,
he's a better 3-point shooter as well.
Where Clarkson has him beat is every other area offensively. Clarkson,
correct,
off the dribble game is really, really good. And look, if Deuce had that, we wouldn't have signed Clarkson. You know, Clarkson can get buckets now.
And he's an underrated passer as well. He's an underrated passer, and he can get tunnel vision at time, but I think that, it depends on, on the coach holding him accountable to hit the open guy. But
I think Mike Brown will do that. I think we've seen, if nothing else, Brown is going to hold his players accountable. I think that that there's precedent for that. So from that standpoint, probably good to have someone who, try and keep Clarkson, focused. And I think you're right, especially on the drive, getting the ball to the corner for wide open 3-point shooters, which is something that we have, and Deuce is good at it. So are OG and Bridges. So, but I actually think that the combination of Deuce and Clarkson makes a lot of sense playing next to each other, because one can defend and one can't. Deuce can spot up off of Clarkson, which works offensively as well. Right. So I think that there's some synergy between those two, and I think they make a lot of sense together. And if you're talking about Josh Hart and Yabusele with those two, I see a lot of ability to run and gun, and Hart get the rebound and everybody goes, and we're off to the races. Like, that's what I would really like to see from the second unit. Whether you have 5 bench players or if you have one of the starters mixed in, whomever it might be. Right. I would really like to see that, and I think you could maximize OG in that type of scenario as well if he was playing with those 4, in a fast-paced lineup that got out and pushed the pace and ran and spaced the floor. I think you could get a lot of good things out of that grouping.
Yeah, I would agree. I agree. It's going to be seen. I think he, if I read it correctly, is someone who plays his starters a lot of minutes together as well, and tends to do wholesale bench coaching, but bench substitutions. But that doesn't mean that that's something he's going to continue to do, right? He may mix and match.
Well, I think if he learned anything from his predecessor, right? His predecessor lost his job because of that kind of stubbornness and rigidity. So I would think that one of the things that he said in his interviewing is that, look, I'm not going to be as stubborn with my rotations, but you know what? If he finds a starting lineup that works,
like about to say, if he finds one that works,
roll with it. Like, that's what teams do. Like,
right?
Especially you have your starting 5. I just think that in the case of Thibodeau, from January 1st throughout the playoffs, even when we were winning series in the playoffs, the numbers clearly showed that starting lineup was not working, and he, was very reticent to alter it. And so I think the difference is going to be Brown's going to figure out his 5, but then if it struggles, then maybe he'll be a little bit more proactive with it than just saying, nope, those are my 5, and that's what we're doing, so that's the hope anyway.
Yeah, for those who are interested, DJ Zulu from KFS did a breakdown of Clarkson. You can find it on his Twitter feed. I believe he said he was going to do one on Yabusele. I don't know if he did. If he did, I didn't see it, but I haven't
seen it yet either. But I'm on the lookout for it, because the breakdown on Clarkson was really good. It was a game against the Indiana Pacers, I believe, and it showed the good, the bad, and the ugly. So It was a great primer for his potential in a Knick uniform, both bad and good.
Yeah, for sure. I like him. I like listening to content creators when they talk about the advanced stats, lineup data, but I gotta be honest. I'm attracted to DJ Zulu's work because he talks about the advanced stats in the context of understanding the culture of basketball, understanding team culture, and understanding how NBA teams work. So he gives you the context. So if a coach is not following a lineup data or something, he's able to say, you know what, it could be because of A, B, and C. Like he gives you that context. There are other content creators that focus on the analytics that at this point I just can't listen to them anymore because of, I don't even know if this is a word, the pomposity. Like it's just a lot of, why isn't the coach doing this? This is what the lineup data says. The coach is not doing it. He doesn't know what he like. I can't listen to, me personally, in that type of context. I think we've gotten our, what do you call it? Our subscriptions to Cleaning the Glass and Basketball Reference and all of these advanced stats websites, and now all of a sudden we are NBA coaches and we could tell like the coach is doing something wrong. Listen, the curiosity of it, I get. Like, what the hell is going on? This is what the lineup data is saying. The coach is not doing that. Like, what is that about? Like, to me, I think that's fair and that's legit. Or I know what it's about and I disagree with it. I would do it this way. I think that's fair and legit. But I've actually heard a content creator saying, oh, Thibodeau is mismanaging the roster because he's not following the lineup data. Like, I just feel like just bring it down some, a little more curiosity, when it comes to the coaches and these advanced stats. But what I like about DJ Zulu is that he gives you that. He will tell you what the advanced stats say and will say, well, maybe it's this or maybe it's that. And even if it is, I disagree with it. You know what I mean? That's the type of context I need. Actually.
I like he and Benji Ritholtz because they see the game in a way that I don't.
Right.
Like they are very good at, okay, they're running this, they're running the Spain, they're doing this, they're doing that. Like they recognize that stuff. While like if I look for that stuff, I can find it, but that's, I'm still teaching myself how to view the game that way, and they just see the game that way when they watch it. And to me, that's super impressive. And so that's why I enjoy their content too. I think Uncle Freezy is a lot that way also. I got to listen to a little bit of his show the other night, but he very much understands the nuance of, well, this is the pick and roll and this guy's supposed to be cutting here and he didn't. And that's why this play broke that stuff. I could eat. I eat that stuff up. I could. Watch
I eat it up. I love it. It just brings another element to my understanding of the game and what I'm watching. I think it's just how it's done that to me I find it a little irksome.
Context always matters. Size 9 is on point there. You always have to be careful of the context of the statistics and make sure that you're reading it in the right way. I use this example in my Bible class all the time as about context. If I tell you that my wife beats me every night, you'll think that she's a terrible person. But if I tell you that my wife beats me at dominoes every night, then that's a completely different context. And so that it puts it in an entirely different light. And of course, most people who are with the advanced stats have a specific agenda, because we all do. We all want the stats to back up what our personal thoughts are. And so, I think that there is a bias that comes in there as well. But so you have to strike a balance with all of those things. But I like it because I don't understand the game that way. So I want to have that perspective too. And so, because I think that if you understand that, you can go in and you can blend all that stuff and have a more in-depth understanding.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Last question before we get out of here. Phoenix Suns may buy out Bradley Beal. Do you think he would be a good fit on a minimum contract for the Knicks?
Well, whose minutes is he going to take? I guess. Like, yeah, if you get him, what's Jordan Clarkson for? I mean, I think, yeah, he probably could be. I think that there are other areas I would rather see us fill. Like, I still think we could use a backup point guard. I still think we could use a backup center. I still thought so. To me, there are, and it depends how the entire roster looks. But what I'll say is this, I guess, if we make a consolidation trade where we send out 2 or 3 rotation players and we bring back 1 or 2, players in return of a little bit better quality. Let's say we do a 3-for-1, just as an example. Then I would say, yes, let's seriously look at bringing in a Bradley Beal here. But if you're just talking about the roster as it is now and then just adding Brad Beal to it, I'm not sure. Like, I think we've got a log jam at that position now. Like, and then you're going to bring in a guy who, if he's coming here, he's going to expect starters minutes, I would think. I don't think Bradley Beal is signing anywhere to play 15 minutes a night. Do you?
I don't. I would bring him in, though, and I would move somebody else.
Yeah.
I would
could start him for that matter. I mean, you could, in other words, if you had Brunson, Beal, Anunoby, Bridges, and Cat, like, I think that's tough to argue with. Like, I think that does.
Yeah, I mean, he's injury prone, but on a minimum deal. I mean, I think you have to kick the tires on that. And see, I didn't even think about him as a starter, but you're right. You could start him. Well, where is he defensively as well?
Yeah, he's not gonna guard anybody. That's for sure. We know that. Yeah, let's not kid ourselves about Brad Beal. The guy can shoot, but he's not known for his defense.
Yeah. All right. Any last words before we get out of here?
Everybody have a great 4th of July. Chat, what a great conversation. I love some of the points that y'all brought up. Very good back and forth and repartee. We even had a Sixers fan in here, a DX Relish. We had a Pacers fan in here. So shout out to you, Jordan, as well. It's great to see Trey and have Jerrell back in the house, and you make it all happen with the Magic every week. So thank you for that. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. I do have a piece coming out tomorrow about Coach Brown, and today's article was about Yabusele, and I did one about
Clark. I read the Clarkson one. These articles come at you fast, though. I was able to read the Clarkson one, so I would read the Yabusele and Brown one real quick. I just asked you about Bradley Beal. Would you have any interest in Ben Simmons? I know I didn't hear anything about the Knicks' connection to Beal, but I have heard that they've kind of inquired about, maybe touched base with Ben Simmons.
I'm not a huge Ben Simmons guy. He literally won't shoot. He does some amazing things passing the ball, and he used to be a good defender. I don't know if he is anymore. Mm-hmm. I don't really want to be in the business of handing him a contract, but as a minimum guy, if you're not relying on him, and you could sign him. I'm not going to be overly excited by Ben Simmons, and I don't think he's more than a 15-minute per game guy at this point in his career. For a contending team, maybe you feel differently about it, but it's kind of like with Clarkson. If we sign him, I'm going to root for him. Do I think it's the best use of assets? No.
Yeah. I agree. again, with a minimum, like we talked about earlier, they're going to have some flaws, right? At his best, he's going to rebound for you. He's definitely going to allow Brunson to play off ball. Like, he can play that point guard position, and he does have size. He's not a great shooter, not even a willing shooter. And I'm not sure where his defense is right now.
And he has the Mikal Bridges allergic to contact disease too.
Yeah. I don't share that narrative, but I hear you. But I hear you. So, yeah, I mean, if the Knicks do it, it's fine. Not something I'm pounding the table about, but I am interested in Beal. I don't know if he would be interested in the Knicks. I think there's probably more minutes for him elsewhere. Just to get to some of these, Clarkson will have some ice cold nights. He's streaky. Cat's minutes depend on him staying out of foul trouble. I love the idea of Mitch starting and dominating the paint, but Mitch isn't good over 20 minutes and will probably get hurt. Okay. Listen, I don't think he was all the way back in the playoffs. I do think after he played a certain amount of minutes, there was a drop off. But I think with some conditioning over the summer, I think he could play back to where he was, 26 or maybe even more than that per game. The injury risk is there, though. That injury risk is there. Think Mitch and Deuce are trade material because of contracts now.
I think Mitch and Bridges more so. Deuce, his contract is so small, you can't really, unless you're aggregating it with somebody else, you're not really gonna get any value there.
Yeah. Ruben Nunez, it's driving me crazy. We had a good coach. We don't need a good coach. We need a great coach to take us to the next level.
Which great coaches were out there?
Yeah.
Like, that's my question. I'm not going to disagree with you, but how many most great coaches are either retired or they're employed, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Andrew K. can't wait to see how Dink Pate, is it Pate or Pate, looks at Summer League.
With a name like Dink, I'm going to root for him. I don't know. I don't think he's 19 years old. He's a kid, probably a two-way contract guy. But yes, please. We need more Dink Pate in our lives for sure. Right.
Clarkson can go crazy on any particular night, like how Neesmith did us. Yeah. Love those additions, especially Yabu, size and shooting. Finally, someone over 6'4". With Yabusele, I know he shoots a good percentage. Was it on good volume?
Yeah, decent volume.
Over
four per game.
That's
like 25, 26 minutes. So yeah, he's not shy and he can stroke it. He's good.
That's going to be good. And I like it even if you play him with Mitchell Robinson, right?
Yeah. No, having a stretch big on the floor at all times is it's a different world from where we're at last year. So we're going to need that from him, though, because he doesn't guard anybody. And he's not a really great rebounder either.
Oh, yeah. I would have liked Bryant. He's new. All right. Okay. All right. Good enough. I appreciate everybody in the chat. I appreciate the replay gang. I appreciate the silent listeners not in the chat that don't comment and let us know they're part of the replay gang, but you listen to us either live or on replay. Definitely appreciate the silent listeners. We'll be back. We'll do 2 shows through July. Things may slow down in August. We may go back to 1 show in August. We'll see how that goes, but we'll be back Monday, 8 p.m. Until next time, family. Appreciate you. Appreciate you, Geoff. Trey, who was with us, Jerrell, and Ajay, who really wanted to talk about Mike Brown but couldn't make it tonight. Appreciate you. And hopefully everything is going better, J Boogie. Until next time.
Amen.
Sister, you're one of a kind.
Yes.
Sister, it's time you
That's
shine. Don't so.
Where you at? Where you at?
Don't so.
Where you at? Where you at?
Don't so.